That is magic because all kids say, I can do it.
It's such an interesting topic that, of course, I would keep asking.
There must be an opportunity.
Google can do it. Meta can do it. Yes, they have billions in cash. They can do whatever they want.
So I quit banking. I focus on that.
It looks brilliant. I hope that it will provide with even more brilliant people.
It's very difficult to say that is the benchmark and I want to improve.
Natasha Tetruyeva. I listened to your LinkedIn voice several times.
Oh, really?
Natasha
That is good.
Tetruyeva.
I was taught by,
Natasha
there was a
Tetruyeva.
workshop, they said you need to do it.
Really?
Yeah, you need to do it because otherwise people don't know how to pronounce your name. That is how
true.
it starts.
Yeah, because...
That is where language learning kicks in.
Oh, wow. That was so fast. No, because I was like, if I think my native thought would be Tetruyeva. And it's like, no. Tetruyeva. Okay. So Natasha, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me here.
No, I'm really happy.
I'm delighted. We are based in Munich, so what could be better to be invited to a podcast with Wayra?
Perfect. If you want to, because there are several topics that I want to cover related to your life and to what you do, but maybe the best thing is always to give a little context of why you're here, and it's because eKidz. So can you tell a little bit about it? What is it?
Okay, so we founded eKidz as we felt that there is an urgency to introduce mobile technology into classrooms, and the mobile technology in classrooms is helping definitely to personalize the instructions. And that is what we need. The classrooms became very, very diverse, and children bring different abilities, needs. They definitely are very, very talented, but the question is, are we supporting them? Are we giving them a chance to live to their talents? Are we giving them a chance to excel academically? And that is where we started. We actually looked at different topics and subjects, and we realized that language is the very core ability and the very core skill that you need to really manage and master to excel academically. So that is why we are doing languages, and eKidz basically gives a very accessible and interactive access to learning a language or literacy.
How far is language from communication? Because yes, of course, you need language to excel, I guess, but you also need communication to be able to express what you know. So even if you're very wise in language, but you're shy or you're not able to, to structure proper sentences, how far is it communication from language?
I think it's not far, and that is what we see now with the idea is not just to learn a language, but the idea is to be able to formalize your ideas, to allow other people to understand your thinking, to understand how you come up with a solution. And that is so critical in the modern world that kids really need to learn, to start learning it from the very beginning. That's why, presentations, projects, that is what we need. But of course, the first steps is reading, because to get to formalization of your ideas for effective communication, you need to read, you need to learn from others, you need to listen. Listening comprehension is very important. So when we talk about languages, for us, it's everything. It's reading, listening skills. It's also verbal communication. And the verbal communication has been critical because we at eKidz, we allow kids to record everything they do. So if they read, they can record reading themselves aloud. If they retell a story, they can record themselves retelling the story. Or even if they reflect and they work on the creative task, they also can record what they think about the book, what is their reflection before they go into writing. So for us, communication is key.
Okay, so now thinking about the way to sell that or to convey that in a product and a service and sell it to schools. How do you do it? What's the business model? What do you sell to schools?
We sell to schools what they really need, and the urgency and the need is in literacy first. Okay. So literacy, when we started working on eKidz, we had a situation that was recorded and reported by PISA, where in Europe, across Europe, every fifth child couldn't comprehend what they are reading in grade 4. So
Grade 4 is how old?
So that is about 10.
Okay.
10 years old,
They cannot
9
comprehend
years
what they
old.
read.
They read and they couldn't put it together. So basically, they were technically reading but not comprehending.
Wow.
But the situation has changed. So over years, in 2022, in Germany alone, it was recorded that every fourth child every fourth child.
So it got worse.
It's getting worse. And I think it's getting worse because we are not adapting. There have been so many crises. There has been in Europe alone a crisis of migration after the Syrian refugee crisis. There is another crisis in 2022 from refugees coming from Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So we are not adapting to the situation that families are just not supporting kids in the traditional way as they used to. And we need to change. And the change has to come in school. So it has to be implemented into the classrooms. It cannot be just school happening in the traditional way and then parents supporting, because parents just cannot support, and language is critical.
Wow. So what you're saying is that we're going worse because all these conflicts that happen, that many families have less access to resources, therefore their kids are less literate than before.
I think it's just that the society became very diverse, multilingual.
Okay.
If you think about it, in Germany alone, we have 50% of kids coming from families where at least one parent is not German.
50%?
Or from the migration background. Wow. And that is a lot. So the classroom has changed, but the traditional way of teaching is still there. Yeah. So we are slowly adapting, and we need to speed up. And the technology is what can change this. So technology actually helps teachers to be able to teach in classrooms of 30, 35 kids from very diverse backgrounds, but be able also to personalize the instructions.
Okay, so then coming back to the service and the product. So you're there, the problem is quite clear. How do you say? Do you sell them a phone with a program on top, or how do you sell it?
Yeah, so we sell. We don't have to sell the phone, as most of the countries have made a significant digitalization progress in their schools. So from COVID, we've seen Digital Pact 1 finally coming to schools in Germany. In the US, it's a completely different situation. Every kid has actually a device, and the device is given by school. So basically, you do have a Chromebook, or you do have an iPad, or you have access to a mobile device. And even if you look at the emerging markets, the penetration of mobile phones is just enormous. So everyone has access to a mobile device, to a device. So that is not our job. Our job is to provide a very effective content for these devices and allow to transform this screen time into something that is very effective and to something that is helpful and that brings kids to the next level.
That makes sense. Okay, I got it. But then the fact that you're targeting schools means that you're not like Duolingo that is targeting straight B2C, let's say, if I'm not mistaken. Probably they target something else as well, but mainly B2C. Then in your case, it's like we target schools, and therefore I guess that your problem now comes with the educational programs that they already have stated, and they're fixed normally, and it's really hard to change. So like, how do you tell them, well, look, this that you were doing before, now, I don't know, 15% of the program is going to be through a device, and you're going to have an individual tracking of the kids. Because I guess that the teacher would be, no, you're not telling me what to do. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so that is why we actually chose languages. When you teach language, or when you teach, you start from reading, or you start from listening comprehension again, or reading aloud, and you need a lot of practice. So we are not replacing a traditional textbook. Okay. We are actually adding something more effective, interactive, and we give lots of data to teachers. So that's why they actually love it. So we bring it, and also with the developments of the recent years, schools actually have to introduce new lessons that are focused on reading, literacy, language learning to support the trend. So in Germany, there's even a law that you need to have at least one lesson a week in reading. And this lesson you have to fill. So it's really difficult for you to fill it with a page in a textbook that gives you a text. And because of the diversity that what we are working on, we are providing a very differentiated approach. So in our case, you don't have a book for grade 1, but you have 5 levels of reading for grade 1. And then you go to grade 2 and you have another 5 levels of reading. So that is how we differentiate us. So we go granular, and what we allow kids to get direct access to native speakers via modeling the voice. So we only use actors, and we provide them access to the language. So basically there is just a different approach to language and different access.
And then maybe it's because I'm a bit stuck with this. These, at least one lesson that it must be taught digitally is there where you leverage your access into the schools, because they have to do it anyway. So you say, hey, rather than do it some randomly, do it with eKidz because this is already adapted. Is that your way to get in, or?
Yeah, our way to get in is that you need to improve literacy numbers. You definitely need to get those kids, being able to comprehend what they're reading. And this one lesson or 2 lessons is just a structural change of the schooling of the day in school. But you also, as a teacher, you usually stuck because you have different levels of each child in your school in a classroom, and you need somehow to differentiate, which you don't have time for during the lesson. And also, you need to make sure that kids are practicing. Right, and for practice, they need to have access. So what we give them a package. They can access the program from anywhere. They can access it from home, so they can independently progress in language, or they can access it from in school from a shared device, and they can do projects. So there is both interactive part in group settings, but it's also independent. At the end of the day, learning to read is a very independent activity that you need to practice and to advance in yourself. You can have group activities, but at the end you have to become more proficient. You have to reach accuracy. You need to reach speed. You need to reach comprehension, and that is from practice. That is like playing a football. Actually, you need to kick it 1,000 times to be able to kick it right.
And just to have a rough idea, how many students have used eKidz in the last years?
Yeah, we were lucky to get 3 state licenses. So we are accessible to all the schools in Bremen. We are accessible to all the schools in Hamburg, and we are accessible to all the schools in Lower Saxony, Niedersachsen, which means that in total, over 500,000 kids would have access. Of course, that depends on, not every child needs additional support, or that not every classroom uses eKidz, but we are at least 50% of utilization of these numbers. So we are at least at 250 using very actively, and the numbers are growing.
Yeah. And do they use it more at home or at school? Then I guess...
It depends on your teaching style. So every classroom teacher decides. They can use it from home. So we have access with QR codes. You always access your own set of levels. And what's very important is also that a teacher can even decide which skill in language you have to focus on individually. So I might have 30 kids, and I can say those 5 have to focus on listening comprehensions, and the other 5 have to focus on becoming more verbal, recording themselves. And the other 10 are absolutely fine, so they just continue independently reading. And that is just a click in the system. There is a table, you just do click, 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 and that's all is done. Yeah. Okay. And at the end, you facilitate this learning at each individual level with a focus at each individual skill that you need to foster. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then thinking of the client, so the school, it's only schools you target. It's only, I mean, I think it's enough.
We have a product for parents as well, but we just understand that in Europe, when you target literacy, it's more on the side of the state to provide in the education. So it is a core skill, a core subject. So most of the parents would rely on schools to facilitate this.
Okay. So you have a model that is B2B2 K to kid, I guess, and then the other B2C, but I guess it's minor, as you said.
We call it B2B, and
As well.
sometimes we call it, because schools are basically like businesses
Yeah,
for
yeah,
us.
yeah, schools totally.
Yeah.
But the parents?
And the parent is, as you said, as a kid. So we focus on the family. So a parent and a child is obviously behind this, but we also focus on B2G. So we actually sell to governments,
Obviously.
to regional governments,
Yeah.
because they do policy making. They do have to be involved in this critical space in education.
Because in here, then we have the split between B2D and B2B, talking about schools now. With B2G, you're getting also to public schools, and I guess with B2B, you're getting to private schools as well. Is that the split or not?
That's different in Germany, and because Germany is our anchor market, and it's actually even different in the US. So for us, in Germany, we have 5% schools that are private. So basically, that is not the market we are targeting. We are targeting a very broad market of 95%. So we are targeting state schools. We are speaking to the ministries of education in every state. We are organizing pilots with the ministries, and we do see that that is very effective because, as you said, we are not selling the devices, but we are very much dependent on how devices are utilized in classrooms. And the utilization of a digital program is very much a central progress that has to be led by someone who has authority to say, okay, let's go all and let's try this new digital world in classrooms. And teachers, especially primary school teachers, they have so much. They're so overwhelmed that if they are not given the technology, not given the infrastructure, including internet connectivity. So the technology is one piece, another piece is internet connectivity, and then the content as a gem comes on top.
Got it, yeah. And you mentioned as well US, but I guess that if you have to split your revenue, like still Germany is like more than 90%.
Germany is majority of our revenue sources. But we are now in the transition. So what happened is that we spent years on creating value, which is very pedagogical, very thought through. We got to evidence. And now, this year in 2024, after working 2 years on a projects with Fraunhofer Institute, with universities, we got to AI implementation for the classrooms. That means that we do have AI that can assess formatively kids. We know what the accuracy rates are. We know what the speed rates are. We're working on intonation. And with this package of integrated technology, we can allow ourselves now to compete in the US market.
I see.
So that is our next target. We are now actively in pilots involved. We do have one state pilot that is prepared right now in the US, and we have had always one district that worked with us in the immersion programs, and that is the district of Charlotte in North Carolina. That is one of the most effective and impactful districts working on languages and immersion and dual language programs. So we are coming from a very good base and expanding now into US.
Then this is opening up a lot of questions because this relates to your new round, to your current financing round. But before getting into that, because I want to also ask you about the customer lifetime cycle in Germany, because I think it must be a pain. But first, before getting into more details about it, is just why did you start with it? You had a career in banking. You were working in banking for quite some years. And then at some point, we were talking about this before, I just read your LinkedIn and I was like, this is a bit weird. Why did she jump all of a sudden from the banking sector that I guess she was feeling quite comfortable? Actually, you were kind of the director of the Deutsche Bank, so at least a comfortable position, I can imagine. And then suddenly in 2017, you jumped to eKidz. Why was it at the beginning? Why?
Yeah, no, that has obviously personal roots. So I was in banking. I was doing IPOs in Europe. I was also involved in emerging markets. That was all great. And then I got my own kids. And we were moving as a family from one country to another. My first child was born in London. I think my son went every year to a new kindergarten or new school. And after year 5, he didn't like it. So he just didn't like it to the degree that, he realized that the only way to get my attention is just to become nonverbal in school. So I had to intervene. I had really to change my life, and I had to focus a lot on psychology, on speech therapy, on actually how to foster a talent in a classroom. Wow. So we went through many different schools. I actually had to interview directors of school to make sure that they would accept my child and would accept me intervening, kind of like, going into an intervention in the classroom. That is where I was at the state. So I quit banking. I focused on that. And we were over 3 years in Ukraine. And we were in a very comfortable setting in a very private school doing IB, which is absolutely great program with project learning and everything. And we managed to bring our own son to the position where he became verbal, he was comfortable in school, he was academically excelling. And then we decided to move to Germany. And going from an IB school to a German state education is such a transformational step that me as a banker working with emerging markets, I just thought this market doesn't look penetrated a lot. So there must be an opportunity. And as I was so involved into technology, into psychology and pedagogy, I just thought maybe I should change this. Maybe I should let the German state school know that there are different other ways to introduce literacy to multilingual kids. And maybe I should also let the system know that there are other ways to to promote the national identity of every child, because learning a language in school is not just about the schooling language. It's about keeping your cultural identity as well.
Totally.
And for this, you need to have a system that allows a child to progress in both languages or in 3 languages, depending on what your choice is.
Yeah.
So that is where I came from. So I landed in Germany in 2013. And at the time, I had already 3 kids. I realized that that system would probably crash my every child. There was an urgency. I thought, I need to do something. And the technology. So I was very lucky to meet someone who became my co-founder, is John McDonough, who is very senior architect. And he was already at the time looking into creating an app for universities. And it was also for him about languages. He believed very much in the naturalistic language learning and approach where a child is guided naturally to their talents. And I just thought that is a very good opportunity. So actually, I combined my banking skills, my understanding of the emerging market, which effectively education technology was at the time in Europe.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, the next question normally I ask is related to what's the emotional link. I think it's obvious. In this case, I don't need to dig deeper. How did you find your co-founder exactly? Because many people ask this question, I need a technical, in your case, actually it's fun because in your case, you wanted to change the system and you started doing it, but you had the business side, and then it's very difficult most of the times to find kind of your CTO, your technological counterpart.
Yeah, but I think it's the same for a CTO. For
yes,
a CTO,
true,
it's very difficult to find someone who's in the business side. So we combined it all, and to be so for in our case, it's very classic. We met at school, so we were parents.
Okay, you were
and
both parents.
We were also John's wife was a teacher in the kindergarten in school where I went to. So that was an easy combination for us to found an edtech. You just need to look around and talk to parents and teachers in your school and find your co-founder. But I think for us, it was very obvious. So we are 3 co-founders. It's me, John, Felix. Felix is a German, and we definitely needed a German face going into the German education system. John was in Munich at the time. He is British American. He speaks English, and
John McDonald sounds
he understands that he definitely what the value of speaking different other languages. They speak Spanish and English at home with their own kids. So there was for us, we knew what the problem actually is. We could feel it. We could feel that many parents are left behind, not given support in languages, and academically, we understand that excelling academically is very important for every child. And not just because you go to university, you might become, you can choose any profession, but you need to express your own ideas. We live in the world of communication. We met on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
If you don't express yourself, if you can't communicate, that doesn't matter which job you're actually filling in. It's still very dependent on this.
Yeah, that's a good point. But we didn't yes, we met on LinkedIn, but it was thanks to Elena from Google for Startups that introduced us. But yes, it's true that then our communication was through LinkedIn most of the time. But okay, so the thing is, you have these three people that joined together to found eKidz with very similar emotional bonds, I would say, and with a clear vision of the problem. And yes, the wife from Jon, she's in the educational system, let's say, and then you think, okay, I need to do something. We need to do something about this. Let's start to build a product. And I guess that you start in 2017 already when you found the company.
Yeah.
How did you do it at the very beginning? Because I guess it's going to be super difficult. Where did you get the money from? How did you start it? How did you put all of this to work?
How did we put all this to work? First of all, we had a very clear idea how to do it. As I said, John was already developing an app at the time. Okay. So it was clear that we will use mobile technology. Okay. And it was clear that we would go out with iOS at the first kind of leading platform, as we understood that in Germany, for example, iPad is the device of choice for every school. So kids are all on iPads. And that is actually very beneficial because everyone knows which platform to utilize it from. So that helps already. Yeah. And then my idea was that I knew how kids progress. I knew what the helpers they need, what support they need technologically. For example, as we knew that voice plays an enormous role, and it's probably the richest data you can get to. So we knew that we need to get to the stage where we engage a child on the platform, but we also allow them to express themselves. So we made it very communicative, very interactive. And also what we understood is that if we go to schools, teachers need to get a direct access to be able to guide and to feedback. And what we've done is that we focus very much on providing an engaging environment, building content, then laying over the features like, for example, recording, and then giving a teacher access to every recording made on the platform. So linking these two sides was very important for us, the teaching side and the learning side. Mm-hmm. And then the next was to build something that would allow us to introduce analysis. And analysis, that means that you are not building a PDF black box. You are building something that you can analyze everything, a touch, gaze, voice, anything. And then you can decide which part is the most important or gives you the richest data. And that is what we decided. We made for us a choice to go for audio data, as it is the richest data. It's you can judge anything, not just accuracy or intonation. You can actually even judge mental health from voice. So we went for voice, and then funding. It was, of course, critical for us to get funded. Mm-hmm. We were very lucky to get our first business angel involved very early, and we founded practically with her. So we had, I think at the time we got about 110,000 altogether, and we said, okay, let's dive deeper into it because it's still a pedagogical project. So you need to have content. You need to not just an infrastructure. And I still remember we were writing texts. We were engaging with children's authors here in Germany, in Munich. And we wrote that, we printed out, and then we invited for dinner someone from the ministry who came on, we had a dinner with this person, and he was actually retiring. So we put in front of him our printed out text, the first text of eKidz, and we said, do you think that would work? And he said, it might work. And he said, but you're very courageous. You're very courageous to go into literacy in Germany, building something completely from scratch. But he said, I think it might work. So we were we were trying to get very early feedback. We were lucky to get very first investment from a business angel from on day one. So we actually founded the company and we signed 2 documents. The first one was founding and the second one was investment on the same day. And then we were lucky because we are in Bavaria. In Bavaria, you have an incredible investor who is Bayern Capital, which I just posted on my LinkedIn. There was a Connect Bayern Capital event, and we went through Bavarian connections to get us to the meeting with Bayern Capital. He liked the concept, and we engaged from the end of the first year where we had already a product, and we made sure that even with all the obstacles, how to create new content, how to put it all together in a pedagogical way and creating everything from scratch, we managed to release the first version within the first 12 months. So by December 2017, we had a version it was on the App Store. It was for parents, but we made sure that it was also for teachers. So we kind of released a hybrid version. It was allowing you to get 30 kids, just in case you had 30 kids in your family, on board. And we called this
for religious families, okay?
Yeah, and we publish, and so we could access both. We could get feedback immediately from parents, and we could get feedback immediately from teachers. And what we've done also, we built, and that is, I understand that was actually really good because we built the first prototype with John within the first 2 months. So we signed our founding of the company document on 4th of January, and about mid of February, we were already at the largest exhibition in education for Germany at Didakta. We booked our 3 square meters. That was the minimum that we could get. So we asked for the absolute minimum we could get at the time. We had a booth with 3 square meters, and I was recording already there. I think we went to Cologne, and I was recording there our first first messages, first videos, and getting first teachers engaged. We had, I think, 3 books on the platform, and we were showing everything in prototype.
Yeah, okay.
So, to get really fast, early out there with something that is half-baked, but which you believe would be an excellent product.
Yeah.
With, building it in many years. Yeah, that is what we've done.
Is it, I have some questions that some founders that are right now raising or thinking about doing the company, they ask me most of the time, but should you have a salary at the beginning of your startup? And I say, well, it depends also how much the market is valuing you and your product and everything. What was your case? Because it took some time, even you did it quite fast. It's 12 months more or less with 3 senior people that are giving away some nice paycheck. So what was your mentality in this? And were you all the 3 of you committed to it, or how was it?
We were all committed to it. We were in different life situations. So we actually differentiated, I was coming from investment banking. I could afford a year focusing on the problem. That is what I did. If one of us had to get some support, we tried to make sure that at least the minimum is coming along from the investment. So we really differentiated from based on everyone's situation, and then we build it up. So we were going as soon as we could close the round, we went to an average. We always kept salaries at the average, the same for all. And at the moment, we are at the same level that we have, for example, a head of AI and us as founders, and everyone gets the same because that is that is what we can afford. And but you need, as a founder, you need to watch out your liquidity situation. That is difficult at the moment for everyone, I say. So you do your best. If you can sleep on your mattress. And if it's ethic, it doesn't really matter. If you really have to focus, you focus.
Yeah. And I can imagine that from 2017 to now, you managed to survive 7 years already, which is way more than most of the startups. And it should be, I don't know, I was thinking about it and I wanted to ask you how painful it is to think it is so easy now. You said you have a head of AI to develop the same product that you have now. I mean, if you had the technology that you have now in 2017, how different would have been this development of the product? You think it would have been way different?
I think that, the market. So first of all, we know that education technology took some time to enter classrooms. Obviously, COVID situation just sped up the process. Unfortunately, not in all the countries. So US went, as I said, on one-to-one DIY device for every student. Is obviously that the budgets for education technology are regular. The market is mature. There's a clear understanding what the process of purchasing is, and there's also clear understanding what are the requirements. In Europe, it took a while. We are still at the process where people are just the budgets are still built. They are still special situation budgets, not the regular budgets that are allocated to education technology. And education technology definitely need an investment. You can't just go ahead and pretend that publishers will not fill the gap. They haven't done it over the last 7 years I'm in the business, and I don't think that would happen. So you need to watch out for potential for education technology to enter classrooms based on regular budgets. So you need to be able to pitch for something real. At the moment, I think we're still in a penetration phase. So we're still going from special budgets to potential creation of regular budgets for education technology, and also understanding what educational technology actually is. It's not a PDF.
Yeah, of course.
That is very important. And it's also and there are other considerations. For example, in the US, it's very clear that if you have a technology, you integrate it into a platform, and there is rostering, which I don't think people heard of this in Europe. Rostering means that we know exactly which child belong to which classroom. We know which teacher teaches which subjects, and that is all done at the back end. In Germany, there are some states that are introducing it now. We have, for example, in Lower Saxony, in Niedersachsen, there is a Moin-Schule, which is great. That means you have one login. You go on the platform, you log in, and you are straight in the class for you set up, pre-set up in eKidz, right? And that is where we actually have. So there are lots of elements. There is infrastructure, there is connectivity, there is rostering. So meaning that there are centralized platform that are not putting this burden of creating a class on the shoulders of a teacher. So that is all very important.
And my question was a bit more also in the fact of, because I'm still picturing the whole story of the company from 2017 till now, and I was thinking of the costs to develop a platform like this in 2017. But I think that the easiest way is to keep following where we were before. So you were in 2018, you were there in this huge event with the 3 meter squares booth, and so in there you already have a product. You raised this round with this business angel and Buy-in Capital. I guess you get diluted 15%, something like that, the standard, more or less. And then I guess the runway goes until that event, or it goes a bit longer. How do you manage to keep growing from 2017? How do you handle it?
Yes, for us, it was first to get the first pioneers, the first states that would see value in introducing education technology in the core subject, as you just said in the very beginning of the conversation. There is still a core curriculum. So we won Bremen in 2021, which shows you 2021 was actually transformational for Europe, I think. Everyone understood from 2020 in COVID that a change is needed.
Yeah.
Everyone started to get devices, and Bremen rolled out 100,000 devices in January 2021 and equipped every child with a device. And that was, I think, the largest project in Europe. It probably still is. And we could benefit from it. We were already in discussion with Bremen from 2019. We organized a pilot, and immediately after introduction of devices, we piloted with schools and teachers. And it was a very successful pilot. We had about 25 schools in the pilot. Bremen has 100 primary schools in total. And these 25 teachers, they were just amazing. They just used eKidz, engaged, and that was clearly showing us that the product is working really well at scale. So then we and you can see Bremen is a city state. The decision making is different. It's just faster. So you can get, if you convince teachers, you get to the decision makers, you get to the next step, and then you can basically sell to the state. You can convert it from the pilot to a state license. The next state for us was Hamburg. You see the pattern?
Yeah.
It's a city state. It's again easier. And then the next state for us was Lower Saxony, Niedersachsen, which was already a large program, including about 14 different offers going into education from the digital technologies, rolling out both platforms, school platform and content. And that was one of the largest projects where content was involved. So the state decided we need to finally utilize, the infrastructure and not just build up the way how we work all together and which devices, but we also put content on the platform. So that's what they were. And then what we've done is, and that is actually what you're supposed to do as a tech company, you're supposed to make sure that you develop a project or a product that is very engaging and that is working and that is technologically gets to the maturity state at some point. So we invested a lot into tech. We didn't invest into sales, as the sales process, they were very clear. It's all state level discussions, high level discussions, top down sell. Schools still do not have budgets. Schools just don't have budgets. So there's a very important thing to convince teacher, but the budget is top level base. So
it seems a really difficult selling course anyway, because you have to convince the people who's a bit difficult to convince.
Yeah, you just go both ways. You go bottom up from convincing the users, and you go top down selling. Okay. And then, but what happened is that there was an understanding that R&D, like research and development, is needed for education. So we were very lucky to engage into 2 federal projects on R&D and develop AI. And these projects supported us. So we were not just funded, we were funding both sides. One of the, half of the funds came from us selling to schools, and another half of the funds came from us doing R&D projects and being supported by the state.
Okay. So this leap that you do from beginning 2018 to beginning 2021, when you actually get the first big customer with Bremen, you cover this gap because, I guess that in 2018, as I said, your cash flow was running out a little bit, or your cash actually in the bank was running out. And you said, or you already were applying to these funded projects to get some, because I actually that's why
Yeah.
that's what the public funding should cover, actually, the initiative like this one, not only but
Yeah, we were applying. So we got the first project we got, it was 2022. So we applied from
so that didn't
2021.
help you in that.
It didn't help us at the time. At the time, what helped us the first round we did, that we, based on our banking skills, try to make sure that we can survive until the first customer and the first project. And then we applied. We applied from 2019. We applied many times to many different programs, like, on the European level, on the national level. And we built a consortium of really good partners while, the application process brings you to partners. And that is very important. I think, a startup should not underestimate the value of partners. And even if they are coming from the public sector, if you are anyway based on, if you base your selling proposition to the public sector, you should,
even better.
And we understood at the time, in education technology, there are two things that are really important. First, to be able to scale. So, of course, you need to have a platform that is scalable, because you want to get actually all the primary schools. You don't want to get 5 schools. You want to get to thousands.
Yeah.
And the second part is you have to be able to demonstrate evidence. And the evidence is of the positive learning outcome. So to demonstrate evidence, you need to engage very early with researchers. You need to make sure that everything you build is evidence-based, and everything you get outcome is analyzable, and that researchers are heavily involved with you. So that is what we've done. And then I would say what we did bridge with funding from the state on the AI development, on the research and development in general, helped us from the stage where we got the first customer to the stage where we are right now. Because what we needed to do is we still had to become a cutting-edge tech company. And that takes time and funding, and it takes a lot of development work, right?
Yeah, I would say that now you're in a way better situation, but I'm still thinking, how did you overcome this valley that it seems from what you tell me that, from 2018 till 2021, there was no round, there was no funding projects, no clients yet, and I'm sure you didn't have runway for 4 years. So how did you manage to survive there without round, without client, without... What do you do? How do you manage this? Or am I getting something wrong?
Yeah. So the first round after the funding of the company happened actually at the end. So it was already end of second year. So
it was 2018.
It was 2018.
But you said you signed the creation of the company with this first round.
So the first the founding round helped us to survive until we got to the real round.
Okay.
And we got the real round.
Okay, in 2018.
2018, but late.
Okay.
And then we had a 2019 and 2020 where we could focus on developing.
Who was in this round in 2018?
2018, that was Bayern Capital. And there were also another, we had another round with, so Bayern Capital was complemented by business angels. So we have a really good group of smart investors, mostly coming from banking.
Wonder why.
But believing into technology that would change the world in education.
Okay, and there you got yourself 2 years of runway, let's say, more or less.
We also did a follow-up. We had so we attracted attention of a book retail chain, Hugentuber, that actually joined the round, but a year later.
Like a second.
Yeah. So that was it wasn't a significant investment, but that was additionally investment. So we kind of extended the first round that gave us a power to go to 2021 when the first customer came.
Makes sense. And then when you get that customer to finalize this finance idea, this financial situation of the company, in 2021 you already managed to stay kind of even a bit positive, or not even, or like?
We got to a break even after we got our third state.
Okay, so after the Saxony.
Yeah.
So, and that was 2020?
That was end of 2022.
20,
So like, so we are now effectively the second year managing to fund our operations and development and AI introduction with operations and revenues.
Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
And how many FTEs do you have in the company right now working?
So we have about 12 to 15 people.
Split how? How do you split the team? Like,
It is heavily split into development.
that makes
So
sense.
we have development, and then we have product support. So not really sales, but product support. Because when we get a large customer like Estate, we need to roll out. And that is the goal for from the first contract to prolongation, you need to roll out and engage. So we have at the moment 4 languages. We support German, English, Spanish, and Ukrainian. And in every language, we have a product support person that works with us to either introduce to the language in a certain geography or to continue introductions into the schools. And in Germany, we benefited a lot from our cooperation with University of Regensburg,
Okay.
where we got lots of support from young researchers that also introduce the product in various webinars, teachings, and that helps to roll out.
Good. So you have these 4 people specific for language, for each language. Then you have the 3
We have
founders.
3 people doing languages.
Okay.
And we have for every platform we develop, we have a senior developer, and we have a small AI team, and then of course we have testers that confirm that their product is working on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And every release works well. So we have we have a group of 5 developers and QAs focused on front. And then we have a group of 3 people focused on AI. And with John, it makes effectively 9 people focused on technology. So you see, the composition is heavily investment
That
into
makes sense.
technology. Yeah.
Still, yeah. Good. And now finally jumping to the clients itself, where we left it before. Yeah. What is the KPI for the schools? Because when you're thinking of a company, they have clear KPIs that are normally related to revenues and margins. In the case of school, are they being measured by the amount of or the percentage of literacy students that they have or not? Like, what's the incentive to say, yes, I need to hire eKidz? I know it comes from the top, as you described, but what's the incentive rather than I want my kids to be better? Is there any extra incentives for the school to get eKidz?
Yeah, I think how we measure it, and that is what we do in conversation. Again, with the top layer, you talk to the district level, and then you analyze how schools are using it. So you have 2 layers. First, you have a layer of teacher. The teacher is very much focused on motivational aspect.
Yeah.
And the teacher is very much focused on their personalization of instructions. That means, do I have enough to give every child and to support every child and to motivate every child? But at the end of the day, for teachers, this motivation is key. Because we know all how reading works or how language learning works, even with Duolingo. We are not Duolingo, but engaging every day, engaging every week, being there, staying on board, playing with your teacher and doing some work in language is very important. And literacy is the same. So you need to continue reading. That is the first. If you continue reading, you will get there. But so the motivation to engage and this engagement of every child is very important for a teacher.
Yeah.
That is how they measure it. They measure it very clearly. Can I engage my kids in literacy? Have I given them a tool where they read often, where they practice? Do they get better? And that is and do they get better is it's the task of the teacher to make sure, and it very much depends, because you can have schools where you have really many kids from migrational background,
Yeah.
right? So in Bremen, that's why it's actually a great focus area for us. There are over 80% kids coming from background with migrant families or half family or parent coming from this background. So they need to provide support that is exceptional and different. So that is where they see the difference. They have finally a tool that is adapted to individual needs of every child, and where you can have a class on you. And the key is not just to promote the kids that are at risk, but also to give enough promotion to the kids that are talented.
Yeah,
In
of
this
course, of
particular
course.
subject, right? You don't want to lose both. So both edges are important for a teacher. For the school administration, a district level or a state level, important is that you purchase something that is used in classrooms. So first you need to show that there is engagement, and the engagement is continually growing, and it's not something that happens first month you introduce the tool and then in 3 months time no one is using it. So you need to show continuous engagement. That is what we show. We actually demonstrate, because we can analyze as we go as deep as showing how many minutes are learned, how many pages are recorded, how many pages are read, how many pages are listened. And that we can demonstrate that obviously there is a certain seasonality.
Of course.
No child is reading at Christmas.
Yeah, obviously.
They
No,
have other things to do, and that is correct. That should be the way they live their lives.
It happens
And
always.
and so you do have, of course, vacation, periods of school holidays, and then. But important is that you pick up after every holiday.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
get
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
engagement, and you get back, or you get even January, for example, is for us one of the best months. In January, people are realizing that,
Yeah.
maybe because there are report cards coming, halfway through. So you see, where you need to pick up
Yeah.
or where you need to focus a little bit more. So that is that is how we measure. We measure on engagement, and then we measure on how the class differentiate after certain times. So we show the composition of reading levels at the very beginning of the term and at the end of the term. And you see that there is 20% reaching higher levels. There are certain composition on the middle levels, and kids are still so that gives you at least an idea that you are supporting kids individually. So you giving them chance to progress faster or in their own time, or you have a gap. So but it's very individual. I don't think the European culture is a culture of giving access but not comparing. So we don't have this here. It's very different in the US.
Okay.
In the US you would be measured on how many years you needed to bring this child to the level where they had to be.
Wait, then before jumping to US, because I wanted to comment something on what you said about Germany. The seasonality, by the way, obviously, we invested also in Complori. That is also an edtech tool for kids to learn how to program, among other things. And obviously, it offers the clients in summer and winter, so that's completely common. But then what I wanted to understand about the state level, because the state at the end is the one who holds the budget, is the ultimate warden for you. So it's like, I'm thinking of the people from the state level that would be like, I need to be better at the PISA report next year, because if they tell me again that every fourth kid in Germany is illiterate, I'm going to be blushed. Therefore, I need someone to help me. So that's the huge motivation for them. Is that the case? Because then, of course, you said how you measured number of read pages, what's the level at the beginning, at the end, etc. But I was trying to look for this extra motivation that the state level has. Like, okay, I have this budget that I'm normally spending in this, and I need to change, because if we have another PISA report, and it's now every third kid in Germany, so it's getting worse and worse and worse. This is embarrassing. Is that the major reasoning for you to sell it or not, to get access to that budget?
So when you're at the state level, of course you want to improve, but it's very difficult to measure because, like, let's imagine you're in year 20, and let's say 2019, right? Just before COVID. Like, the Syrian crisis happened, but actually everything settled down. And then suddenly you find yourself in 2020 when schools closed. And there's no instructions for kids, and there's no online schooling just because you want to keep it all equal for everyone. So you start, like in the example of Germany, sending paper letters to parents, and parents are picking them up at 4
The Germans
p.m.
love to send paper letters.
Yeah, they love to send it. So they send them, So then you come back to 2021 and you realize what the effect of COVID is actually has done, what is like the result of the COVID based on the literacy numbers, right? Yeah. And then as soon as you kind of thought you are recovering, 2022 comes and the Ukraine crisis happens, and there are lots of refugees coming from Ukraine not speaking the language. So you need to pick up and you need to bring them to the same level. So you have to see there's no, it's very difficult to say, that is the benchmark and I want to improve, because obviously you are not controlling their environment, you are not controlling their society, you are not you are not in charge of all this. But what you have to do, you have to make sure that you are using everything available to bring to the classroom to make sure that that every child gets enough support. So I'm not sure people measure themselves on how they do in literacy now, because unfortunately for Germany, that hasn't changed over the last 20 years. There was a slight improvement, and then it was again back to basics, and we are again working on the numbers. But I think that what you want to do at the state level is you want to introduce effective technologies that might complement what you have done so far. And you need to base it, you need to make sure you use something that is evidence-based, that there is that you are kind of you can prove that there is a positive learning outcome. And then you need to make sure that you are introducing new ways of accessing literacy, because you can't stay on the traditional, the numbers, the data shows you that something needs to change. And that is how you're trying to fill in this gap, and how you're trying to experiment and introduce new tools for this.
Okay, so rather than a report that is going to make your face red, is more about we're witnessing an obvious change, and it constantly changed. So yes, it was Ukraine, it was COVID, but tomorrow it will be something different, and this change will still keep going. And we need to do something to adapt. Therefore, we have this budget that we need to use anyway somehow.
Or you need to create a new budget.
Or you need to create a new budget that you were saying
Maybe
before.
you need to create a new budget. And that is what, for example, in the state of Bavaria happened this year. There was a new budget for AI and media for every school, every child. So every child in the primary school gets 4.7 euros that can be spent on the digital media or AI introduction into their teaching and learning.
Is that enough for eKidz?
That would be great for eKidz, especially as there are not too many evidence-based tools that are already in classrooms and already showing positive learning outcomes. So yes.
Yeah. Okay, so to finalize this journey that you have with at the state level and at the school, you said that the lifetime cycle is quite long. It could take up to 2 years. But then once you're there, do you have churn from these states or?
Oh, yeah. No, thanks God, no. Otherwise, I might not have been sitting here and speaking to you.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I think, no, we managed to, if we are rolling out in the states, so far we managed to keep all the states, but that is also supported from the teacher side. A teacher, we talked about curriculum, right?
Yeah.
And when you introduce a new tool, you want to be sure that next year, the time you spent on introduction of a new tool is not going to be just lost, right? Yeah. You want to, and the same from the state side, you want to have enough time to measure outcomes. Imagine you would be switching one day to another, like, let's try this. And let's
True,
there's
true.
no outcome for this. So there is a certain degree of security when you get into state if you can prove the engagement, if you can prove the numbers, and if you can manage to roll out, because we are still in Germany, and in Germany, every teacher decides for their own classroom what is implemented and what is not implemented. So getting to, I think we are now reaching 50, 60% of usage if we are in the stage, and in states of like city states is much higher. So we have in Bremen, every school registered effectively on eKidz platform, and in like, one teacher or two teachers or three or sometimes even 12 teachers are using eKidz. So that what makes difference. And the contracts are usually longer than 1 year.
Yeah.
And if they are not longer, then we are working on making sure that the states understand the value of eKidz and sees the engagement, and we should actually talk about the numbers. When you are asking, will the state see the impact, right? Or will the state see that there is a positive learning outcome? You actually need a way to measure it, right?
Yes.
And we just introduced this way in the AI literacy assessment, right? That is so new, that is brand new to the whole market. And what we offer right now from 2024, we offer not just training or not just access to language, but also diagnostic and analysis. And with this tool now, you can actually measure. So now from this academic year, you know exactly at what level every student started the journey with us. And at the end of the year, you can measure where they are at the end of the academic year. So you know how speedy they were, like, what is their speed in reading, right?
Yeah,
so you can see the progression. And in most of the tools, like, imagine you have a textbook. So how do you measure an outcome? Like, I give you a textbook and you learn a language. So how do I know how actually you improve? You don't really know. That is a black box for everyone. So it's like really like, so you would be basing your understanding of was there a positive learning outcome or not, just based on everything else happening in the system for your state. And it can be like, it can be like Bavaria, for example, took most of the Ukrainian refugees, right? They are like exceptional numbers and that means that a huge inflow of these kids into the schooling system. And some other state might not have taken that much, but they might have been influenced by other factors, right? So it's very difficult. And I think the key is where we are moving now is that we do provide data that actually gives you a possibility first time to make this educated decision on what you're taking, why you're taking this tool, and how it actually impacts.
The thing is, the difficulty lies on the fact on how do you compare it, because imagine that you say, I'm going to put an extreme example. A 3-year-old kid doesn't know how to read. 13-year-old kid will know how to read. So normally you do and you say in 10 years, it goes from 0 to 100. Perfect. And imagine that now you introduce eKidz and you say, you see, now they know how to read. Perfect. Thanks to eKidz. And you say, no, they knew how to read before. And the fact that now you have these influences in the composition of the classrooms is like, how are you able to compare? Because you're targeting 4th grade, I imagine, right? So mainly 4th grade.
We actually target grade 1 to 4,
1 to 4,
yeah.
Okay. And the comparison for you is super difficult, I guess, in terms of selling it to the professor or not, because the professor knows, actually would be maybe to the state. Like, how do you say, like, look, if you compare it to what you did in 2015, the kids were in this level, now they're in this level. It's not fair for you either, because the composition of the class in 2015, it would be different from the
especially as with education technology, we actually also focus on how effective teachers become, because teachers spend lots of time on preparations and assessing and reporting, right? And we actually allow them to use all this time for personal instructions with students. So that changes not just like the outcomes for the student, but also how effective your teachers are. And if you consider that there are no teachers in future, there will be such a scarcity of teachers in schools. We are already now in the situation where it's just too difficult difficult to keep up with growing demands of classrooms and not enough teachers being there. So I think that is a very important consideration as well. So how do we support teachers, not just kids? So imagine now, as I said, we just introduced this year literacy assessment with AI. That means that before that, you would have to actually get every child in your classroom in front of you, and they would read. You would have to put check marks, or you would somehow you would have to make sure that you actually unbiased. Put the number of the reading speed, the number to accuracy, to everything, and then imagine now how much time you spend for this. And now I'm giving you a tool where you're not just training, you are also actually performing this, not even consciously for a child because it's part of the system. You don't have to set time of your class and put everyone into this demanding and also quite stressful for a young child situation to perform in front of a teacher. And now so there's there's a huge accumulation of hours for a teacher that they can finally spend on giving these personal instructions to children that need them.
Yeah, for the teacher, I think it's great. For the kid, I'm a bit sad that they don't get this anxiety to be in front of the class, because I think that helps them then to perform in their daily life. But don't they have then fraud? Like, imagine that a kid is not performing in any topic related to reading.
That is actually, that is the beauty of focusing on language. So let's say you do math, right? So, and I'll give you an automized test for math in grade 3. Actually, you could have had AI next to you, ChatGPT answering questions. You just write it down, right? Here we have voice. You wouldn't ask your mother to read the text for you. We always keep the recording. So a teacher gets both the quality and the quantity assessment. So the data is there, so we know exactly, but we always give the recording. So a teacher can listen in, and they can listen to reading of a child or performing on a task, even in May or June when they write the final report, and they forgot how you progress. So if you forgot, you actually have a track record, an audio track record individually for every child. That's alone kept us going from 2021, where we introduced recording, to 2024, where we introduced AI analysis of this recording.
But then this is it seems to me, a way bigger value of the tool than the proper teaching of the kids or the proper improvement in the language of the kids. Is it's the teachers.
And that's why we do B2B. We realized in 2019 that we can actually help teachers as much as we can help children and their parents. So we provide both sides with a very valuable proposition. They get all their feedback, they can reflect on it, both sides, right? So if I'm as a child, I'm getting a text, I can record it, and I can listen straight away. And you know what? That is magic, because all kids say, I can do it. Everyone can do everything. They never hear themselves. That is the first time they hear themselves speaking or reading aloud. And when they hear themselves, they try to get better. So there is a certain training in this. They get better, they re-record, and they know that the recording goes straight to the teacher. So that is another magic. So there's one magic of self-regulation in the motivation. So I know, I can listen to it straight away. I know that I could do better, so I do better. So there is a training in this. And then there is another one that I know that there is a monitoring control from the teacher. A teacher will get every recording. They would know. I can still delete my recording if I don't like it.
That's good.
But then I would have to re-record again, and there is a training again.
Yeah,
and then
that's
there
good.
is a certain
great.
And what we first built this environment, and then we introduce the tests. And the tests you cannot delete them. So the test is a test. It still remains a test. So you are put on in a different, we simulate a task environment for you. Of course, it's slightly more stressful, but it's part of your program. You don't do anything else. You don't have to set time aside. You don't need to go to a different program. It's all in. And I think that is the value which every state also sees. So we combine the diagnostic and training. And that is critical, because as we discuss, how do you know if a child performs? You don't know because they read, there's sometimes a test. There's one in a while. There is a test, but it depends on, maybe it was a rainy day, and you just came to school, or maybe your mother told you something in the morning, or you're not getting the present you hope for. It can happen anything. Kids are like that. So you need to make sure that there is a continuous measurement of performance, and there is a continuous kind of support of the child at the level where they are, and that is what we actually give the state.
Got it. Now my question now jumps, and we are going to US finally. Now that you managed to unlock what from the outside seems a really entangled and complex process, that is to sell in the state level, sell it to the customer, sell it to the teacher. Most of the job, by the way, looking at the team, would be done by you, I guess, and someone else in sales.
And Felix.
Felix, okay. So you're two are devoted to that among running the company. So, so now you manage, you spend, let's say until 2020, spend 4 years understanding this, which is really complex. You get an edge there, and you get an entry barrier, because if you're there and you have a competitor trying to get in, good luck, because you're going to need patience. You need to develop the platform. You need to be better, and then you need to get in. So I understand now that you have a little bit this mode built. But and then you unlock this, and you say, well, now we're going to US. That the situation is completely different. I guess you have a little network there as well. But it's like, first, I want to understand what's your current ARR in Germany, more or less, if it's something you can share. And then how do you jump? Why do you get entangled in that mess? And I will explain later why I say it is a mess.
Yeah. So there are different reasons for us. First of all, we would have to grow out of the German market, because German market remains to be a German market. It is a certain, it's one of the best in Europe, but it has a certain cap.
You have so many states to go yet, no?
You have so many states. Yeah, we are going state by state, But the key is that you have in the US right now, we have a clear target. That is what we go for. There is an English language learners. The English language learners, about half of them are Spanish-speaking kids.
Wow.
And we have Spanish and English on the platform. And we introduce AI in the same way we did in German, in English, and in Spanish. So basically, we are in the situation where the US market has about 3 models in automatic speech recognition for kids that can be implemented in the classroom settings. We would be bringing the 4th model, and that is an enormous advantage. This is a competitive advantage that we see, that first, going into US, you have to be ready with your product. The product has to offer something that the US market is looking for, and that is the part of analysis and diagnostic. You have to differentiate from other players, and you have to be unique, and there needs to be a significant portion of the market that you can capture, right? So if you consider how many, how many teachers in the US still sit in front of computer and still put this checkbox when a child is reading, if a phoneme was read correctly or incorrectly, and how much time they spend on it, and how much focus districts are about time spent and what time is spent. And also the same situation as in Germany, there, I think it's about 25% of US population that speaks a different language at home than they are actually speaking in their classrooms. So that makes it a significant portion of the population that requires a different access to language. So with this composition, being unique from the tech point of view, having a product that is complete for the market, and bringing it to the right people, so to the right population of students. For example, the ones that need support in both languages, Spanish and English. That's a big, that is a big advantage and a big, I would say, motivation for us to go to US.
Okay, so it's not only about US being US and everyone want to go to US because valuations are higher, blah 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 blah. But in your case, you have a language advantage that you need to take.
Yeah.
Care
So
of.
we offer, our advantage of the technology we build is that we can introduce any language content on the platform. We only do it, of course, if there's a business case. We introduce already Spanish and English, and the combination of Spanish-English for dual language program for immersion learners and for English language learners in the US is a significant advantage to be able to introduce the analysis for every of these languages. So obviously, if you have a child, let's say a child is fluent in Spanish, but a child is not so much fluent in English, your classroom teacher in the US would focus very much on English. They would have no idea if that is if you see the problem, you don't know if that is a problem of a learning problem, a learning even disability sometimes, or if it's just because you have a multilingual child in front of you. So you have now an ability to make sure you actually get data from both languages.
Yeah, but yes, I mean, I understand completely the problem, I think, and I understand why you can solve it. My issue or my fear here is you jump to a country that is super far away, that you have a disadvantage in terms of your network, a disadvantage in terms of you work in 24 hours, and because if you go to France or to Italy, it's closer, you still be in the same time frame zone. It's easier. And then in US, it's like you need probably the dedicated team there. I don't know if you have to go school to school, or is it also state level, like you mentioned at the beginning, like North Carolina and Charlotte. But I don't know if that's state level and you sell it once and you already have, like in Bremen, 100,000 kids in, or is it one by one, I have 100 kids and have 100 kids?
So let's start from going market by market and being close to market or not close to market.
Okay.
In Europe, I think McKinsey have done this job for me already. They analyze what you need to do. Are you
free, that's good.
or free? Is it worth of putting your resources? Every market requires resources. If I go to France, I would have to put a French team.
Yes.
I would have to focus on the market myself as well, and I would have to make sure that we are there and we are performing, right? If I go to Italy, the same. So it's my third team now. And if I go to Benelux, the same. So I would have to focus on every market, but the depth of the market, the depth of the budget of the market, just gives me if I focus on one market, I'd rather choose US to focus on first. Then the second one is what we discuss is, remember you said that we were introduced by Helena? Yeah. And you remember what Helena is doing? Yeah. She's in Google Growth Academy, AI for Education. And remember that Google is one of the companies that actually penetrate the education market in the US. So what we made sure is that we are connected to every tech company. We went through the program Founding Hub with Microsoft. So we are the Microsoft startup for Microsoft. And we are chosen by Apple Education to be one of the few partners that offer tech solution for schools as a flexible, different approach to whatever problem you're tackling. And we are now with Google. So we want the tech base. We've got all three companies that we work with, and we rely on or we can cross-sell or we can access schools with every company in different ways.
Okay, then your plan is different, because in here you said, I'm going to go B2B2B, because I'm going to go to, I will sell to Apple, I will sell to Google, and then they will sell to the schools.
No, I just made sure at the moment that I understand the tech base of every district and every school. Okay. That is important. That is the same as in Europe. You need to know if there are enough devices in the school system before you go with content, right?
Of course.
In the US, you need to understand how every of these tech giants plays the technology. You need to understand, do you need an Android app or do you need a web app? If you work on the Google Chromebooks, you also need to understand which class room uses which technology. For example, you usually start at kindergarten with Apple device and iPad, and then you move at grades 3 or 4, you move to Google Chromebook. So you need to understand which, what you're actually offering, and that suffice to move you quick. And then yes, no, we do focus in the US again on school districts, and that it has been the theme of the market. I think about 3 years ago, people talked about independence of each teacher and budgets. Right now, it's very much moved to the level of school district, and the school district brings you numbers. So obviously, you need to convince still teachers that your product is good enough, but the selling is the same. It's still top down.
Okay.
You just have the school district would be the size of our state in Germany. That is,
true. Yeah, good.
That's it.
Yeah,
right?
of course, that's the great point of US always.
Yeah.
But I guess that then you're facing the trouble of competition. That normally competition in US is tougher. I don't know if that's the case, or do you have different competition?
You have larger market and higher level of competition, but you still compete. As I said, we go into the competition where we know that many teachers still sit and mark their tests, manually, and that is that is a crucial point. You are entering something where only one company or two companies manage to automate the process.
And it's fair to think that this will change anyway. But if you say that these companies are so into education, and of course, I hate to come up with this because it's something that you can always come up with. That is like, Google can do it, Meta can do it. Yes, they have billions in cash. They can do whatever they want. But do you think there's incentive enough for them to go and do the solution that you're doing? Or not? And it's more likely that they will do some buyings in the area. Who's going to make the market homogeneous in this sense?
I see. So you mean, am I competing then with Googles and Apples of this world? I think that the school and pedagogy and psychology behind this requires a very specific level of attention. So when we talk, the critical thing is, so why do you think I can build a speech recognition for German schools? It's only because no one actually invested into it. No one actually looked at it. A Siri does not understand kids because kids have volatile voices. They jump when they talk. They might have.
I'm sure it will in months. Don't you think that it will understand kids in months?
Do you know when Siri was introduced? So what happened over this number of years? So over the whole number of years, they just, because they tackle a different problem. So Siri tries to help you they try, like all these speech recognition systems, they try to understand what you actually intended to say to help you. Right?
Yeah.
When we enter education, we actually want to understand exactly what you were saying, to understand where is your need, where is your problem is, and how we can help you. We don't want to kind of imagine it for you, or kind of to guess it for you. That is not guessing game. That is a different, and that requires a completely different approach. So and understanding this approach, that is what without this, eKidz might not exist, because then everyone, Google and Microsoft and Apple would actually do the job. But we've seen in many other cases, there's always, you need to focus on a problem to solve the problem. You can't just aggregate and say let's just focus. And those companies solve problems for many adults, and kids are different.
Yeah, I agree that's why they don't tackle it yet.
And they might want to buy eKidz later on. That's fine. We can help them to build other models. But that the key is that at the moment there is a need for this. There's a definitely idea that a teacher cannot be the one manually assessing kids and doesn't have time even to understand the data that quickly after assessing, to make sure that the program that is supporting the child is there individually. But everyone talks about personalization of learning.
Yeah.
So there's a conflict in it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course.
So
There's an innate
so you
conflict.
need to help big companies, yeah.
And you need to do, of course, you need to do things that they will not do because they don't think that the market is big enough, for example, or because whatever, it's not strategic enough.
Yeah, or like, some people, of course, like, as I said earlier, publishers could have done the job, but they are, like, the margins are fine from paper. And only now we get to situation where ChatGPT is introduced, and then big companies that were supporting students in online education suddenly, like, go down in the market caps. And that all happens as we speak. So, like, of course, system will get better, but the key is that they will, like, you need differentiate, you need specialized solutions. That is the same as fine tuning of LLMs. An LLM is an LLM. You don't need large language model to solve a very specific problem. You actually need a smaller language model to solve the problem.
Yeah, that's a very good quote.
Yeah.
I will still need to go through the speech recognition that you use, the competition, the specific details of the round. But I don't want to keep roasting you with questions. Yeah. And I think that we've arrived to do the longest interview so far.
Okay.
By the way, so I don't want to keep you here forever. But I thank you a lot for all the explanations that you did. And it's such an interesting topic that, of course, I would keep asking because we barely did anything related to technology. So we didn't dig in the technology part, which is extremely interesting because of what you said, the accuracy and how you're focused on, no, I don't need to, yes, whatever they say, I know that is related to this. No, I need to actually understand every vocal and consonant that this kid pronounced. Yeah. So that's super interesting. But as I said, I don't want to keep you here as a hostage forever. But I would like to ask you the last question. It's just about, unless you want to tell anything else, of course, it's just about how do you envision the future then? How do you think further of education? What's your ideal scenario of life in 10 years? How do you envision this?
Yeah, I think, like, that is a great question. I think that we arrived at the point where we understood how valuable voice analysis is, how valuable is to make sure that a machine understands a child, and how valuable it is when we then can analyze the data and understand what child might need to promote the talent of the child, right? And if you think about it, we could actually have helped kids to understand complex math, physics, airspace, anything. And it starts always with the voice. It starts with the interaction because kids learn from interactive process. So what we are thinking is that it's great that we've got the automatic speech recognition that understands kids' voices. We'll continue working on it. But that is also a heart of getting into the next interaction and building or fine-tuning an LLM that would help kids to progress in other subjects, that would help kids to, like, to be guided, because that is what a child needs. A child needs a guidance. They are talented. They will find their talent, but they need someone who spends time on their individual needs, understand them better, and understand their learning style better. And that is where we're heading. So we are thinking now, and we actually even already applied to the next R&D projects with Technical University of Munich. And that goes into fine-tuning of an LLM for school and introducing the chat agent, chatbot, that would guide the child through the process of learning. And that is based on the voice interaction. So we'll continue working on getting many languages done in the way that we can understand children, but also going next step into introducing this guidance with larger language models, and also introducing the way of giving kids feedback, immediate and very adaptive, and to the subject that they actually need in. So not like, you can have a need during the day or your evening to find out something very specific, but you need to have a possibility to ask this question and to get a reliable answer, pedagogical answer, because you trust the system. So as a child, you have to be able to trust that the answer is a correct answer, right?
Yeah.
And it has to be prepared in the way that you understand it better. So if you are a visual learner, then I might provide you an illustration. And if you are more into reading text or listening to my explanations, then I might give you an audio answer. So that is the future of learning, I think. So I think that would change, as you said. Every month, everything changes. And we believe that the voice is in the middle of it, in the heart of it. And cracking this code of understanding kids brings us to the next level. And the next levels allows us to give this adaptive feedback, which we all strived for many, many years and all imagined that would appear in the classrooms. And then we can allow teacher to do finally their role that they were supposed to do, to give the instructions, to pay attention to social interaction, to pay attention to your mental health, and go beyond just giving an adaptive feedback on on your question. So that is what we want to go into the future.
Awesome. It looks super interesting. It looks super nice. It looks brilliant. I hope that it will provide with even more brilliant people, and therefore we aim and we should develop more interesting things so the world will go better in the future. That's the final goal of it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Natasha.
Thank you very much.
Ciao, ciao.